Donald Trump is facing down failure after failure as his approval rating sinks to new lows, which is why it must hurt so much more that President Obama in the last week has kind of reemerged onto the scene, calling out Donald Trump not only for his failed immigration policy a few days ago, but last night addressing the thing that drives him the craziest: his empty crowds in the wake of his failed parade. We're going to get into it, but before we do, I want to see where Donald Trump's head is at with another one of his political opponents. He started the morning with an insane rant about Kamala Harris, then we're going to check out President Obama.
So what they did is they interviewed 60 Minutes, they interviewed Kamala. Her answer was horrendous. I would say election threatening. This is the day before the election. Her answer was election threatening or so incompetent. So they took the entire answer out, and they took another answer to another question and put it in. And they did that, I understand, a number of times, but you don't have to do it a number of times. The main question they asked, and we caught them. And they're very embarrassed by it, and they're working on a settlement now. But think of it, did you ever hear that one before? They took the entire, every word, threw it out, put another answer. You think they do that for me?
I think it happens daily.
Well, I've never seen it. I thought I've seen everything. That I've never seen. And it's very embarrassing. The head of 60 Minutes got fired. The head of CBS got fired. They're all getting fired.
Do you think the deal
See what
will
they're
not
doing here?
What are they doing right now?
This is only if you're in construction. This is exciting. See, they have to get it.
I always say that it is quite easy to get under Donald Trump's skin, but to live rent-free in his head is something else entirely, and it's something that clearly Kamala Harris has achieved. Donald Trump has been driven crazy by this 60 Minutes interview that he just can't stop talking about, even though we have seen recently that Fox News has been caught editing out Trump clips to make him look better about his lies about LA. Donald Trump is the one who actually needs help from a propaganda outlet to make sure his base doesn't realize he is an idiot. But unfortunately, they realized that he's an embarrassment a bit when none of them turned up to his parade, and Donald Trump himself even understood that, as detailed by Michael Wolff right here before we get into President Obama.
He's kind of pissed off. I mean, he's pissed off at the soldiers. I mean, he's accusing them of hamming it up. But you know, and by that he seems to mean that they were having a good time, that they were waving, that they were enjoying themselves and showing a convivial face rather than a military face.
Interesting.
And he kind of reamed out Hegseth for this. Apparently there was a phone call, and he said to Hegseth, you know, the tone was all wrong. Why was the tone wrong? Who staged this? There was the tone problem. You know, Trump, he keeps repeating himself. So that was the word on that phone call, was tone. I would interpret that he wanted something menacing, I suppose, you know, something military, like something like, you know, this is the most staggering force in the world, and maybe it will come for you. Instead of, you know, I think it appeared to a lot of people that there was a kind of festive air. Everybody was actually celebrating something, you know, the 250 years of the U.S. military, probably celebrating that more than Donald Trump's birthday.
Donald Trump knows that his parade was a failure. It was a humiliation. It was yet another example of how the crowd sizes just aren't what they used to be. And of course, I got to make that gesture because we're going to see what President Obama recently had to say just last night in the wake of this discussion about Donald Trump's failed parade. Let's take a look right here. Obama breaks silence to troll Trump about his crowd sizes. Former President Barack Obama has finally broken his MAGA 2.0 silence, reminding a sold-out crowd that his first inauguration turnout trumped the sitting president's. Obama, 63, refrained from mentioning Donald Trump by name, but made clear who he was referring to during an on-stage question and answer session in Connecticut, which did not permit news cameras to record. In 2020, one person won the election, and it wasn't the guy complaining about it, Obama said Tuesday, according to local media, and that's just a fact. Just like the fact that my inauguration had more people. I say that, by the way, not because I don't care, but because facts are important. The White House fired back in a statement to the Daily Beast on Wednesday, writing Barack Obama should spend less time whining about his total lack of relevance and more time figuring out why the Democratic Party's approval rating are at historic lows, said White House Assistant Press Secretary. The Hartford Courant report that Obama did not utter Trump's name once during his appearance on stage with Heather Cox Richardson, a Boston College historian. He did allude to Trump's war on facts, however, describing it as a threat to democracy. You just have to flood the zone with so much untruth constantly that at some point people don't believe anything, Obama said. So it doesn't matter if a candidate running for office just is constantly just hypothetically saying untrue things, or if an elected president claims that he won an election when he lost and that the system was rigged. But then he wins, it isn't rigged because he won. It doesn't matter if everyone believes it, it just matters if everybody starts kind of throwing up their hands and saying, well, I guess it doesn't matter. And that's what's happening. That response from the White House saying that President Barack Obama has no relevance just goes to show that they must be on really high alert right now, especially after that report that we read about Donald Trump reaming out Pete Hegseth, yelling at him, angry, furious. Why did you fail to plan this parade? It was an absolute embarrassment. They must realize that if you want to keep your job, you got to say that there were 2 million people at the parade, that everyone came. There were no squeaky tanks. It was all smooth sailing. Just a complete embarrassment. Donald Trump has done everything he can to politicize the parts of our government he claimed Joe Biden was politicizing during his time in office. It is a perfect example of how every MAGA accusation is actually a truth about them. And one of the worst examples, as we know, is Donald Trump attacking LA with the National Guard, with the Marines, with ICE, and Senator Alyssa Slott can ask Pete Hegseth about that. And I want to take a look.
My biggest concern with you at the helm was the potential use of the military in ways that contradict the Constitution or that taint what I hope we all want, which is an apolitical military. And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs. You said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later, you've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed Guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those
enforcement
people.
officers.
Throw them in the jail. 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing, authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man, list it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual, did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are there
so say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please. Yes or no?
As I've said time and time again, through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest-
who are trying to do their job,
Okay.
deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous
So
administration.
they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily
Okay.
detain and
Have
hand
you-
over to ICE. But
have
there's no
you given-
arresting going
have
on.
you-
And you know this better than
Have you
you're trying to
authorized
play
the
political
U.S.
games.
military
There's no
to use
arresting
cyber
of U.S.
tools
personnel.
of the U.S. military against members of the protest? Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
Certainly in no way that I'd be aware of.
Okay, that's good. I love that answer. That's great. Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues
What is
across
that
the
based
aisle.
on? What evidence would you
It
have
is
that an
based
order
on
like that has
Donald
ever
Trump
been given?
giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So you're poo-pooing of this. It just shows you don't understand who we are as a country. Who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay, on Iran. I don't think there's a debate. There's like a cat fight going on in your own party about whether to go after Iran. Have you commissioned any day after planning? So any force protection, any use of ground troops in Iran, any cost assessments? Because I don't think we doubt what we can do as a country in the attack. It's the day after with Iraq and Afghanistan that so many of us have learned to be so deeply concerned about. Have you authorized day after planning?
As I've said, we have plans for everything, Senator.
Okay.
The way that Donald Trump has politicized our military is incredibly scary in a moment in which the president seems hell-bent on carrying out his personal vengeance against anyone in opposition to him. And it is why it is so important that we don't just cover these events as the mainstream media does, but explain why they're taking place. If there is unrest in LA, the media will call it unrest. We will say that it is unrest caused by Donald Trump for the express purpose of distracting us. That is the truth behind these events. We will cover it on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.